The villain Apocalypse is not unknown to X-Men fans by any means. Neither is the House of M storyline in the comics, where Wanda Maximoff erases most mutant powers from existence. But do you know where these two plots meet? That's when Gambit becomes one of the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, Death. To know how it happens, keep watching. But first, let's explore what the Horsemen are and how they come into the picture after House of M. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The Horsemen's role in Apocalypse's age. Have you seen Good Omens? Just like there are biblical horsemen of Armageddon, it's the same with Apocalypse. Fans know that the 4 Horsemen originally had powers that complemented their Horseman role, such as the Plague's ability to spread disease, which resulted in the Plague becoming pestilence. This changed over time, thanks to the popularity of the Horsemen, according to creators, starting with Angel becoming Death, the most popular of the 4 Horsemen. The role of the 4 Horsemen, as shown in the live-action X-Men Apocalypse, is to aid the Ancient Mutant in reaching his goals, help him reach more mutants, get powerful mutants to him, provide him with information, and so on. Bryan Singer says the Horsemen are adapted after real-life cult members and their behaviors, which tells us more about their role. Essentially, they are there to spread Apocalypse's word and aid his endeavors in any way possible. They also ache to serve him and fulfill his belief in his agenda of survival of the fittest. Of course, we saw with Strom that the last part can change quickly. And since Apocalypse can enhance powers and manipulate, he presents his cult as a family to many, such as Magneto in X-Men Apocalypse. Of course, we all know who Eric's actual family is and where his loyalty lies. But how does Gambit end up in Apocalypse's grasp? Time to get to it. Gambit becoming Death was a choice, a bad one that had far-reaching consequences. You see, Apocalypse had woken when mutants felt threatened, and when he turned up at the X-Men mansion and started talking, quite a few mutants sided with the Ancient Mutant because he was on their side. This was, of course, made worse by mutants and sentinels, of all things, working together against threats like Apocalypse, which all factored into his plan. He used famine to induce an unquenchable hunger and then offered his nourishing blood to true believers among mutants to stave off said hunger. The Ancient Mutant released the Horseman War when humans left the Sentinel machines due to induced hunger. Yet, he was waiting for something before reducing humans and mutants to 10% of their population and pitting them in battle. Gambit. Apocalypse knew he would come because he felt no one was listening to him, and he had lost faith in the X-Men's ideology of coexistence. Feeling that this was the savior their people needed, Gambit went to the Ancient Mutant, asked to be a horseman, and drank his blood, partly helped by minor manipulation from the Ancient himself. Yet Gambit was not a complete fool. He had contingency plans against any personality manipulation. No anesthetic. Being awake and aware, he thought, would help him combat anything Apocalypse does because he didn't want to hurt the X-Men. He loved them and just wanted to aid Apocalypse should he be on the mutants' side for good, which readers know wasn't true, but poor Gam was unaware of. Of course, Gambit's dark personality as Death showed what an epic failure this was. Even his costume turned dark, Bully Maguire style, despite fans collectively hating the new look. His powers also got a significant boost. Now he was able to trap people in his cards telepathically, making avoiding a hit impossible. Add to this the traditional Horseman powers, and we get a powerhouse of a character. The damage levels on this one. We feel that Mystique telling Gambit about a man whom Rogue could touch and be with, and encouraging him to sacrifice for her, could have played a part in shaking him enough mentally that he could not see the error of his ways. Of course, nothing can justify what Gambit did or how stupid he was, despite the powers Remy gained as both Gambit and Death. And yet, when Rogue saw him, she expressed sadness. Despite saying he was not Remy but Death to her, Rogue turned out to be right. Apocalypse could not squash out all the love, perhaps because he didn't give it much value beyond an evolutionary thing with limited benefits. Gambit even threatened Apocalypse when the latter tried to put Gambit into readjustment when the man realized he still loved Rogue and not all of Remy was gone. Apocalypse left well enough alone, preferring not to have the air in his lungs turned into poison, I suppose. One condition he gave, though, was no more talk of love. He preferred his death to be a force of nature. Long story short, at some point, Gambit recalled love and Rogue's love. Bits of who he truly was never truly got lost, which made it inevitable that one day Gambit would be able to unleash himself from death, Remy's resilience, reclaiming herself. This began when Sunfire, who had been cured of being the Horseman Famine by Emma Frost, ambushed Remy and took an unconscious Gambit as Death to Japan. There, the two decided they needed to attack the X-Men mansion to prove they were out of Apocalypse's control. Not only that, but to show he had moved on from his past, Gambit was willing to end Rogue, which shows how much of his way had been lost, in our opinion. Thankfully, the duo failed and retreated to lick their wounds. But who should ensnare them next except Mr. Sinister? Like, sure, he was genuine in helping them overcome Apocalypse's brain work, yet Gambit now had to toe a fine line in looking like he was working for Sinister while not actually harming others. For example, the birth of the first mutant baby since M-Day. Yes, Hope Summers. The Summers family are very important in the X-Men stories. Now, Sinister, being the villain he is, wanted the baby captured, something Gambit and Sunfire agreed to do and even fought for. Yet, what he wanted truly was to help Rogue. The baby and Mystique's powers combined could cure her coma. Gambit took on Cable, murdered the Purifiers, and defeated Bishop, not to do something asked of him by Mr. Sinister, but because he wanted to help someone he cared for. However, using a baby is still iffy, even if no one was hurt and both Rogue and the baby left for safety, leaving Gambit to travel alone. While eventually Gambit became a master of himself again, death still lurks in his subconscious and appears occasionally, making Remy an interesting character set to go kaput at any moment. After all, how long can you imprison death? Marvelous verdict. Gambit's stint as a Horseman shows us a lot about the character. His voluntarily seeking Apocalypse shows that while he wants the best for mutants, he might have flawed ideas on how to achieve that. His choosing to regain his personality and thought shows he isn't a complete fool. For all that, it didn't work as intended fully. The character is complex and beautiful, made more so by the chained death persona and its implications. How far Gambit would go to save the people he loves is an interesting question now, seeing that we've seen him capture a baby and ensure its safety while also joining Apocalypse, yet trying to make sure he stays true to himself. This story featuring Gambit makes us wonder why he was killed in X-Men 97 instead of using the character to his full potential. After all, he's more than the man Rogue loves, but can only touch when he dies saving her, and yet he is also the one whose heart she also broke. Reducing such a character to their romantic relationships alone might serve the story of Rogue, but feels like a disservice to a character who holds multitudes within himself, as shown by when he became death itself. Perhaps this is why fans are theorizing that Gambit will return as one of the Horsemen of Apocalypse. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.